Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Melissa. I'm the president and CEO of the Nashoba Valley Chamber of Commerce. Very special thanks to our series sponsor, Fidelity Bank. Fidelity Bank has been a longtime supporter and sponsor of the Chamber. I would like to introduce Ed Manzi, Chairman and CEO of Fidelity, to say a few words.
Good morning, Melissa. Thank you. And thanks to the Chamber and your leadership for all the great work you're doing through all these difficult, challenging times. We really appreciate it. And what I like to do is when I have a chance to talk is I don't assume that everyone on the call knows us. So we've been around for 134th years, 1888, 833 years. So we've been here for a long time in Central Mass. We're not affiliated with that other Fidelity. We had the name first. So, but we offer a full suite of community bank products for consumers, mortgages, small businesses. But like most banks, the products are pretty much the same, right? But I like to say that just because the products are the same doesn't make all banks the same. Our unique, what makes us unique is our mission statement says to our clients, communities, and colleagues, we say we care deeply about your well-being. So we're going to use our hearts and our heads to help you get where you want to be. Because we care so deeply, we created a unique approach to banking. We call it life design banking. And what that is it's got a four-step, simple, straightforward process that's unbelievably impactful, helping people make good decisions about their money that are in their interest, not just the bank. So they get the clarity they need so they can move forward with confidence. And I know everyone on this call probably can think about just in the last 6 weeks, in the last year, where the clarity about what should I do was so hard to find. And once you found it, you can move forward with confidence. That is the unique value of this approach. And we also, like I said up front, we make that promise to the colleagues that we work with and to the communities that we serve. And the Shine Initiative, which is, Fred, you introduced Fred in a few minutes. We've been a longtime supporter of the Shine Initiative, probably over 15 years. It's our number one philanthropic cause at the bank. And with that four-step process, the same thing we did. We try to identify what's the biggest unmet need in the community that we could find. It was mental health conditions. And we evolved to mental health conditions in young people. I mean, you think we were talking about the COVID virus a few minutes ago. I did some simple math. It's like 32 million people in America have been infected. It's 320 million. So 1 in 10 people have been infected. Mental health conditions, 1 in 4 people. So this is a mainstream health issue. So we're really happy to be part of it. It's part of our mission to help the clients, the community, and the colleagues. So this is one of our many ways of helping the community. I'm really happy to be able to support this today, particularly because of our guest speaker. So thank you, and back to you.
Thank you, Ed. So today's guest is Fred Kaelin. Fred is the Executive Director of the Shine Initiative. In part of my speech, actually, my introduction to Fred is exactly what you were just saying, Ed. In 2004, the team and leadership at Fidelity Bank asked the question, how do we make a positive impact on a social issue that lacks popular attention and support? And the Shine Initiative, which is a nonprofit organization with the mission to combat discrimination and to destigmatize mental health conditions in children and young adults, was created. While it is important to start discussions on mental health with children and young adults, we need to continue the discussion with our not so young adults, my age and older, at home with our friends and in the workplace. Without further ado, I turn this over to our mental health boss, Fred.
Thank you, Melissa, and thank you, Ed. It's great to be here with all of you for breakfast. I thought to myself, all right, it's spring. Here we are. It's the first thing in the morning, and we're going to talk about a topic that is just an easy one for folks to talk about, right? Mental health, right? Everyone just talks about it in the workplace and everywhere, that's kind of what really the Shine is about, both with young people and with adults, is just, knowing that it's not something that is regularly something to talk about. That it's something that we've all been sort of conditioned actually sort of to not talk about. So our efforts really in schools and with educators and with, business folks like yourselves is just to normalize these conversations, just to start to make it, similar to when we all go through allergy season or flu season in Massachusetts or even, navigating the pandemic. We all sort of, check in with each other on it and see how it's going. And we tend to hesitate to do the same when it's around mental health. So I'm really pleased to be here. I do have a presentation. So the SHINE initiative, as Ed said, the issue of mental health conditions and youth mental health conditions is a mainstream one in terms of the numbers. And yet it's not a mainstream one in terms of how our society, tends to talk about it or face it. So part of what we're trying to do is to make mental health, make it mainstream in terms of normalizing those conversations and giving everyone, not just professionals who we turn to when we really need support, but giving everyone enough knowledge and confidence to talk about it. Just a quick thing though, I know in the introduction to this morning, not introduction, but in the description for this morning, we talked about, that mental health conditions, particularly in youth, was a major crisis point before 2020. And so just, quickly for folks to think about how did we get here? One, too few providers. Everyone who has worked in the field has known for a decade that there weren't enough mental health professionals coming, the workforce development wasn't there to meet the needs. And now we're in a place where the need has escalated greatly, particularly in the past 4 or 5 years. Stigma and access are the number, of the 2 top barriers. All the research shows us, you've got to have access to support, but also overcoming that stigma is a big thing. That gets in people's way just as much as anything else. And around all of this, mental health literacy, as I mentioned before, is really uncommon. I'm a parent. I have a 6-year-old and a 12-year-old, and I say to people all the time, when you're a first-time parent, and your infant suddenly has an illness, like if anyone's ever heard like a croup cough, right? It's like this horrifying thing as a parent to hear for the first time. Everyone who's been through it before is like, oh, this is no big deal. You turn to other parents, you get some sense of, touch point. If you call your doctor's office, you talk to a nurse or someone who just says, here's what you do. And so what we're trying to really do is to make just basic mental health literacy more common, and that helps with the stigma, right? People just get more comfortable. Before the pandemic, as we said, mental health outcomes were pretty poor, in the country and even in the state. 1 in 5 youth experience a mental health disorder requiring treatment in a given year in America. And yet 50% of those youth don't get help. That's for Massachusetts. Nationwide, it's 60% don't get help. Massachusetts actually is a little bit better than a lot of the country because we do have such a focus on health. But still, half of those young people don't get the treatment they need. And then the most sobering thing of all, this is unfortunately a true verified statistic. We get asked about it all the time when we talk about it. But in 2016, suicide became the 2nd leading cause of death for ages 10 to 24 in America. And that has stayed the same since 2016. It was the 3rd leading cause of death before that, and it rose significantly to the 2nd leading cause of death. And one of the biggest groups is 10 to 14-year-olds was one of the biggest increases. You think about that, it terrifies me as a parent. I have a 12-year-old. So all the reason for us to sort of embrace the awkward and figure out how to get to normalizing talking about, mental health conditions and also mental wellness. Then you bring in what we've all been through, since really March of 2020, when it really, the shutdowns began and everything. Since April of 2020, the CDC surveys that were completed this past fall showed that anxiety and depression symptoms among all ages had grown, but particularly the youngest people, teens and people in their 20s, saw 4 times the rate of anxiety symptoms as compared to 2019 and 3 times the rate of depression. Isolation is one of the worst things for mental health conditions. It exacerbates them. And we all had sort of enforced isolation that's still ongoing for many people. And then also related to that, the collective kind of and individual trauma of the past year and a half, people who suffered losses and couldn't properly, in ways they were used to grieve properly. And then also just all of the collective things we watched as a society and experience, massive food insecurity, societal violence, in January, the violence at the Capitol. All of those things, racial violence, all of those things are things we all are sitting back in this somewhat isolated space and having to process. And that's very destabilizing and at times traumatizing for people. The word unprecedented has sort of become overused, right? And one of the things we talk about at Shine is it's not just unprecedented, it's unsettling. It's been an unsettled year, and people still feel unsettled. My middle schooler, he just is going back to school full time. On day one, he was over the moon about finally get to go back. On day 3, he was miserable. He was exhausted. He was anxious about some of his peers sometimes have their masks down beneath their noses. Am I going to get sick? Like the newness of what used to be normal, right, was now sort of hitting him. And so he went from extremely excited to then having a ton of, an anxiety reaction, really. And those are things that people, as you think about workforces and, and you're all navigating, like schools are we hybrid? Do we have certain people back? What are the protocols? Who's vaccinated, who's not, all of those things that I know you were talking about even when I first came in. So the good news is that for those of us who are not, mental health professionals, there are lots of small things that make a difference. And, those small things are sort of really where to begin. It's easier to start with small steps. Making space for your own self-care. And, self-care gets overused right now. It's a lot of companies want to sell you their self-care products, but really self-care is something intentional. So it's not just grabbing that afternoon latte that you get every day and telling your coworkers, you had to do it for your own self-care, and you rush there and you get it, but you're on your phone and you're doing a million things. Real self-care is when you enjoy that latte, you actually set 5 or 10 minutes aside to put your phone down, unplug, sit in the sun if you can, get some fresh air, take a few deep breaths. That's more of a self-care practice when you're being intentional about it. Scheduling somewhere around a new 60 minutes a week of an additional action. So, that can be 15 minutes, 4 different times. I mean, a lot of you, are good at math, figuring out 60 minutes in an intentional way. And, again, not just for yourself, but obviously for your employees. Beginning to just, if you don't regularly, talking a little bit about your own moods, your own ups and downs, your own self-care that you're doing. If you do establish a new practice for 60 minutes a week, gardening or deep breathing, if you actually feel like it helps you a little bit, just casually mentioning that to a friend or a coworker begins to just create the space that, like, these are just things we touch base on. Kind of the willingness to open that door and modeling, being intentional about mental wellness. And one of the biggest things is making it ongoing, particularly, I know most of us are virtual for work still, but even in a virtual, space, making it just ongoing that we check in with everything that is going on. If you're pretending you've never been affected by a single thing in the past 16 months, everyone knows you're kind of lying. It's like, so the fact that just saying, navigating, trying to get my parents their vaccine has really stressed me out, is not an admission of weakness. It's an admission of that sort of humanity that we're all juggling. But making it ongoing. The research says that any kind of change to a culture or to a relationship happens in smaller, regular ways. Nudges is sort of what the research calls it, small nudges, rather than one big message. Just some steps for yourself and your family. And let me be clear, I get that a lot of you are already doing these things. I definitely understand as someone with lived experience within my own family around mental health that, many of these things we already do or try to do. And yet, what I also say is that the more we talk about them, and also reminders, I'm 47 years old, my mental health condition diagnosis happened in my early 20s. I've had strategies, for now, a couple of decades of my life, and I sometimes forget them. Sometimes all of a sudden I'm like, why am I my shoulders are up to my ears, and why I can barely, take a deep breath. And I realized I haven't done my deep breathing practice in the past 24 hours. How do I forget that? So actually scheduling and making it intentional, having reminders on your phone, on your calendar, whatever it is part of that intentionality. Getting enough sleep, the most common symptom that we've all collectively experienced is sleep disruption in the past year. I won't ask folks to raise their hands if they've experienced it, but sleep disruption, either too much sleep or too little sleep, waking up much more frequently is a really common thing as we have all this background uncertainty and trauma happening. If you are having trouble falling asleep or waking up in the middle of the night, having trouble getting back to sleep, 2 research-proven things that will help is something you can Google called the 4-7-8 breathing pattern. It puts many people to sleep within minutes. And the other thing is listening to a song called Weightless that was actually created with people who researched audio sounds that are soothing and calming to people. And it is considered the most calming song ever created. It's called Weightless. You can find it on most services. It works wonders for my 12-year-old. He listens to it and almost always is out before it ends. Cutting down on screens and social media on your own time. Obviously, we've all had to spend a year doing everything this way. And on our own time, because we tend to be isolated and it's our only way to connect. But if you know the term doom scrolling, this is where when you're scrolling through social media, you're actually seeing the same story, especially the bad stories, over and over again. Consciously, all right, I already knew that happened. I already knew this horrible thing happened. But your emotions keep getting ticked with, oops, oh my gosh, that's a horrible thing. Hey, remember that horrible thing in the world? That horrible thing is still happening. Remember this other horrible thing? Another horrible thing just happened. And it has a dramatic impact on your mood, both for youth and for adults. So we all want to stay connected, but really finding that balance. There are some apps that set a timer that tell you, you've been on social media now for 20 minutes, time to end, or 10 minutes or whatever it is. Volunteering, even virtually, giving back to others is, again, a proven natural mood booster. And the same thing with, getting outside, even if you can't get outside, sitting in front of a window, opening it, getting some fresh air, getting some sunlight, people like to say, we're plants with legs, we need water, food, sunshine. And it's true, we do. So those are some things that, one, you can do for yourself, and then also really think about for your own employees, your own coworkers, modeling and encouraging those things. If ever there's a time that we're going to make this more normal to do in our spaces, like now is the time. I mean, use the excuse of what this has been like, to sort of create those practices, if that makes sense. And in terms of, those of you who have, employees and others, give people knowledge and permission. You don't need a professional degree to act with empathy, to talk openly, to be a little bit of guide to some of the resources at the end we'll talk about. You just need to, have enough knowledge to feel confident. Involving employees or customers directly, the youth we work with love to say, nothing about us without us. But using anonymous surveys to find out what people really want and need for support. Last week, I was talking with a fairly large company that is based in New England and also is co-based in London and New England. And they said that a year and a half ago in May for Mental Health Awareness Month, their HR person brought in this national speaker. They had this great big event. It was live streamed for the UK and it was in person in New England. And it was amazing and impactful. And everybody thought it was great. And then a couple of months later, they were getting feedback, anonymously from employees. And most employees felt that it was very triggering, that they weren't prepared for the depth of it, that they didn't know where to go to next because there was no follow-up, that anyone who brought anything up was just referred to the employee assistance program, the EAP that everybody has. And they felt like we're missing a whole, like we went from 0 to 60 or 0 to 100, and there was no ramp up. There was no, and there was no off ramps either, in a sense, if I keep the driving metaphor going. And so now they're looking at how do we do a much more nuanced, what is the general information we want to get to everyone, and then let people pick and choose. So they're doing a whole survey of what do people are looking for. And what they found is some people want to do the deep dive. They would love to get trained up to be sort of peer guides around mental health that everyone in the organization could know to go to. It doesn't always have to be an HR issue kind of thing. And other people just want the, hey, I'm a parent, just tell me 5 things I can do for my kid right now, And so what they're planning is let people do the pieces they want to do, but everyone's choosing something. So that's part of, our advice, and again, making it ongoing, lots of small messages, suggestions, and some other places we work with, that are adopting some of these, having mindful moments in every Zoom or staff meeting. And that can just look like playing 1 minute of calming music, not the song that puts everyone to sleep, but playing, just 1 minute of, a fairly calm, classical piece or something. And just saying to people, this is the time to turn off your cameras, take deep breaths, let's just, take that moment, just 1 minute of, think how many hours we've spent on Zoom. Just that 1 minute can sort of reset our emotional system. Something hugely popular in the schools we're in, and that people say actually starts to change the sort of culture of the school, is not to have it always hidden and always have to be private conversations, but putting up posters that remind people to make time for their minds, to post crisis lines in bathrooms or on the back of employee IDs. We had a sponsor say, oh, it's amazing, some of your students are getting the crisis number, the national crisis number, to be put on the back of their student IDs in their schools. That's amazing. And I said to this leader, I said, oh, are you doing that with your employees? Because your campus with shift workers, they all have the lanyards. And he paused for a second. He said, no, I wonder if it would make people uncomfortable. And that's literally like the space we need to ask the question of, like, we're like, oh, it's great that the teens are doing it in school. How different should our space be? And I understand that it's different, and an employment space is different, but at least asking that question, is something to think about. Oops, sorry, too fast. As a supervisor or leader, admitting again to struggling at times with these things, actually makes you more relatable. And again, you sort of set the stage that it's okay for us to touch on these things. Another thing, the Headspace app is the most popular sort of meditation app. Lots of research-based stuff on there. Some smaller places, are giving, every employee a membership to that, particularly while they're remote. Scheduling automatic reminders, like so many of us use technology to remind all of our employees and staff of things, or send out an organization-wide schedule for a staff meeting. Also doing things that are just reminders, not telling people what to do, not this is when you need to do yoga. That doesn't work. But just saying to people, this is everybody, and obviously you can have it in batches if it doesn't work to send to everyone, but just saying, here's your reminder to take 5 minutes right now. And it's okay to be not productive for 5 minutes to do this thing. And here's the thing for those of you, productivity matters. Those breaks actually show that people are then more productive after the break. So it's a win-win, for everybody in terms of that. One company we heard of, sent a small desk plan to everyone, in the company. Again, just this really small gesture of, here's this living thing for your home desk. And then when we come back into the office, if we do, bring it into your space. So just, a couple of suggestions there. And then where to turn to in a crisis. We find regularly when we talk to, adults about mental health, that people often know these things exist and they say that they would Google them if they or someone they know needs them. And we all know we can do that. We have our smartphones. And yet the more readily available and the more we normalize that, like, these are great places to turn, they're 24/7, they're anonymous. And what a lot of people don't know, because they're called crisis lines, etc., is that a counselor will talk with you if you're just concerned for someone in your life, and it's not at what you would call a crisis, but it's at to the level where you just need some advice and you're not sure where to turn. You can do that through the crisis line. People will coach you through, ask you some questions about what their behavior is, what's concerning to you, and they'll help you get a gauge as a professional counselor, a gauge on, out of 10, is this a 5 and so you're just getting concerned, or is this a 9 and probably some other intervention needs to happen? Another thing a lot of people don't know is, the Trevor Project is specifically for LGBTQ youth. The Steve Fund is, counselors who are specifically trained, to work with youth of color. Call to Talk is right here in Massachusetts. You can either call the number or, text C2T to, again, that 741-741. And here's just something to know for yourselves. Any of your employees who are under 30 are going to almost exclusively want to do the texting and not the phone calls. And youth, it's literally like 90% to 10%, which any of you who have adolescents or teens are not surprised by at all. But even the statistics on the crisis line is that anyone under 30 almost exclusively uses the text. It's like 88% use the text. So just quickly, just a couple of things, and then I'm happy to sort of open it up to any questions or discussion. As we continue our mission of working in schools and with youth, working with adults and caregivers, youth are a part of a community. So when everyone in the community becomes more of a touch point, that's good for everyone. So we're able to do sort of 45-minute, just like I said, that general overview of mental health literacy and coping skills, kind of a lunch and learn. We have more in-depth workshops we often do for educators, but can also do for workplaces, that are 90 minutes, more interactive. One of them can just be the deeper dive on mental health literacy. The other is the suicide prevention piece for all of us, that we partner with MindWise on signs of suicide for that prevention. That is literally for everyone who is not a professional. It's designed for anybody, and it's evidence-based. It makes a huge difference. And then the really deep thing and a bigger commitment, but I mentioned the one company we're talking to who have staff who want to do this, is having mental health ambassadors, people who will do broken up 3 2-hour sessions, 6 hours of training for a cohort of 8 or 12 employees who literally choose to say, like, I'll be a peer guide on this stuff for folks, not a counselor, not a therapist, but sort of a guide really is the term, more of a peer, kind of peer-to-peer model. Just, shineinitiative.org, our website, and the companion app, the Mind Matters app that we made, all of the resources there are free. The app is free. It's a pretty basic app, but it allows you to sort of fill in your own coping skills that work for you. 117 of our teens, gave us input when we were creating that app. So it's a little bit more youth focused. It's colorful and happy because they literally said everything we get about mental health is always dour and gray. And some teen is sitting in front of a black and white photo in front of a window, and they're in the darkness, with the light shining on their face. Like, they knew the iconography of that and wanted no part of it, which is why in the rebrand and design, Shine's very bright, which obviously fits our name too. But our website has a toolkit on how to start conversations, area resources, for North Central Mass and Central Mass. Our resource guide is a huge, and in April and May of 2020, our website traffic went up 600%. Just, again, early in everyone being locked down at home, how much people were looking for, how do I even begin to support, folks. And now we also are creating a texting platform where people, just like LL Bean sends you their sale reminders or, whatever you signed up for texting, on a larger level, once or twice a week, we'll send out, reminders, links to, maybe the 478 YouTube video, for the breathing piece. Again, non-therapeutic, non-medical, but just a reminder and a support to make people more intentional and conscious of it. So, that's our phone number, website, shineinitiative.org. And then my colleague Jessica does a lot of the education here, and my email is, fred@shineinitiative.org. So I'm going to just stop the share there.
Lori, I see that you unmuted. Was that on purpose?
I don't know how to raise my hand.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, chat.
On May 20th, our company is celebrating World Metrology Day. So it would be a neat thing to add that little tie-in to it because we will have an audience. So
we will definitely get that toolkit out for everybody.
Super. It's obviously so important. We have so many people working at home in our company that we have all been trying to reach out to different people. And last night I called someone who just started with us to say, how are you doing? And what's the best thing and what's the worst thing? And he so nicely told me the best thing were the people and the worst thing is how we write the dates. So he has to think about how you write the dates every time.
How do you write the dates?
Well, we had an instance once in our industry where 04/05 was all they wrote.
Okay.
So was it April 5th or was it May 4th? So you write 04 MAY, and you can either do 2 or 4 digits for the year. Okay. So there'll never be a question on what month we're on.
Okay.
And he's not used to that, and every time he struggles with it. So, but.
Okay. Well, we learned something new. Kaelin.
Oh, I'm so glad that you guys are doing this. I think it's so needed right now. And I had heard that recent statistic was that 1 in 3 young adults are struggling during the pandemic. And we've seen it within my family. And I think it's so valuable to bring it out into the forefront and for people to be talking about it. So thank you.
Thank you. I agree. Anytime that my nephews or my niece call, well, my niece doesn't call often. She's a texter. But anytime that they reach out, like, I want to drop everything that I'm doing just to be there because, I know how stressful and crazy this past year has been for me. So never mind them. And I feel like for the most part, I feel like I have the tools that I need. Obviously, some moments have been rougher this year than others, but they certainly don't have the tools that they've needed. So
I'll make sure they start calling you more often.
And I think, part of our approach of sort of everyone being a touch point, and, this is not surprising, and yet we don't think about it enough, is that anyone who begins to feel like they're struggling, the first person they disclose that to is not going to be a professional. The first person they're going to disclose it to is either their very closest friend, if they're close to a parent, but but many young people will disclose it to an aunt, an uncle, a favorite teacher, a mentor of theirs. And so that's where we're regularly just talking about all of us just having enough to say, okay, I don't, I'm not a social worker, I'm not a psychiatrist, but how do I, just let them know it's okay to talk about and figure out, where we might go next or what some resources are. And some, even something like saying, this company I know, this group I know, has this app that teens helped create. can feel more comfortable to someone who's also a teen. It's not, it's not me at 47 saying, I've created this great app, it just, right. It's just reality, so, yeah, thanks for everyone sharing. It's so relevant right now. I don't, again, with my oldest being 12, in our neighborhood and among his friends, like, I don't know any parent who hasn't seen something that is different this past year around mood and around, just sort of mental wellness in general.
Absolutely. Chip.
Fred, thank you very much for your presentation. I'm a member of the chamber and know Melissa very well. This presentation was recorded, I think very, very valuable. Melissa, will this be available to the membership to revisit this recording?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Well, and like I said, we'll get that toolkit from Fred and we'll share that as well.
Thanks.
Anybody else have anything before we wrap up? Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Ed, Sherry, and the Fidelity Bank team for their ongoing support of the Chamber and the businesses in our region. Thank you, Fidelity Bank team, for your creation, if you're the beginning of the Shine Initiative. It's really a great program, and I love, this is not the first time that we've had Shine Initiative out to talk to the membership. We'll continue to do it because it's definitely something that I think is super important. On that note, I thank everybody for joining us, and I hope you have a wonderful day.